Hello, this is sbfavor Thinking Podcast, and my name is sbfavor. How are you doing today, people? I hope that everyone is having a good day. Rebecca is here again. Today is Tuesday, and we are going to talk about racism. And the reason why I want to talk about this topic is because there is so much going on in our country right now, and we just need to be educated about what racism really is and the root of what it is. We know that racism is a bias, it's a discrimination, it's when one person feels superior over another of an opposite race. And we know that God has made us all equal and nobody should feel superior over another person. And we're just going to talk about that tonight. And Rebecca is here to talk as well. So what's going on, Rebecca?
Hi, how you doing? Doing good, doing great. Today's a blessed day, and this topic, I have to say, is a good one. It's a good one. We need to talk more about it. I personally feel that I need to be more educated. So I'm ready to dive in.
Awesome. Yeah, it's a challenging topic for anybody to talk about sometimes because especially when with different races, because it will challenge you to be extremely honest. It's like we have to really dig deep and be honest on every level because all of us in some kind of way has experienced racism. So we have to talk about it, not to become it. And the more we identify with what it is, then we can root it out of our lives because, you know, that type of hatred could be hiding somewhere. You may not even know it. So, Rebecca, what do you think about racism when it comes to what you have seen on the news recently? What do you think about that? You know, with all the police shooting, you know, men of color, a man being shot in the back 7 times with his back turned. I mean, and then the incident with George Floyd, you know, the officer had him on the ground for 8 minutes plus, and his knee was on his neck, and we all watched how he basically died right there in front of us.
He died right there.
Yeah.
And the thing is that it wasn't just one officer. It was more. It was more than one.
That's
but
right.
the one that had his knee on his neck, yes.
Mm-hmm.
Saw that video.
Mm-hmm.
I have to say that it breaks my heart. It breaks my heart to see that. And I don't think that there has been much change in racism and some form of police brutality. You know, I mean, I come from a background of family in the police force, so you know, I respect the police force. I truly do.
Yes.
And but I also believe that yes, there are people of color, race, ethnic group that are targeted.
Yes.
And also I do believe that they're taken advantage of because police officers may not like people of another or different race, and they might be biased and judgmental and think that, you know, we minorities, you know, one minority is the same as all minorities. And what I mean by that is, you know, for an example, you might have someone who is, you know, a student working, you know, going to an area jogging or going for a walk, right? Mm-hmm. They're taking a nice evening. Well, and this is whether you're Puerto Rican or African American, you know, and then you have a person that purposely, and it could be, like I said, Puerto Rican or African American, any ethnic group, could be normally going to that place perhaps to rob someone intentionally. Okay, so because you have some people that do break the law and I mean in all colors and all races. It seems like everybody's put into the same category,
Right.
and people, and not just police officers, but I'm talking about teachers.
Mm-hmm.
I'm talking about store owners.
Mm-hmm.
I'm talking about anywhere you go, people have they have a bias already.
They
okay.
do.
So before they even get to know who a person is, just by the color of their skin or the accent that's in their voice,
Yeah.
okay, they're already judging them.
That's true. That's true. I mean, because
does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense because you're talking about society as a whole, and the police brutality is just one side of racism, but there are other types of racism. I mean, we have corporate racism, which is discrimination of another race. Some people can't or may not get hired, and that there have been laws put on the books so that there could be a balance in the workplace of diversity. But what about? I mean, there was a time when there were no laws of diversity, and people of color wasn't hired. So there are different types of racism, as I stated, and then you have historical racism, which is slavery and the fact that African people were brought to this country as slaves, and they wasn't allowed to go to school, they wasn't allowed to read, and then when Black people were released from slavery, they had to start all over again, and now when you look at the systematic racism, it is racism in urban areas. You look at housing, when you look at the legal system, funding of education, when you look at the education in schools, public schools, they're defunded. Some schools don't have books. That's another type of systematic racism. You would never see a school in a suburban area without books. So, but yeah, just to kind of throw all of that out there, racism is not good for anybody, and I call it an inhumane act. That's what I call it, and it's a form of hatred, and it's not good for anybody. I mean, it's sometimes
that's
people.
Right.
Go ahead.
That's right. It is inhumane, and I like how it's you're explaining you're breaking it down, the
Mm-hmm.
different types of racism,
Mm-hmm.
because a lot of people don't know the true explanation, definition,
Right.
of each of those factors and the way you're breaking it down.
Right.
Because growing up, see, I grew up in New York, okay?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So when I was raised, right, and I know you I believe you're from New Jersey, so
Yes. Mm-hmm.
and growing up, okay, see, and I really have to thank God for this, because I was raised with all cultures. All
Me too.
cultures,
Mm-hmm.
all sports, the museum, going to the art center and learning about the culture and the art. But when I think about this topic, I think about, now I wasn't born and raised in Puerto Rico, but I am Puerto Rican.
Right.
And my mother's parents they also have like Spaniard descent and Venezuela.
Mm-hmm.
Now my father's mother,
Mm-hmm.
her mother was African Puerto Rican.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what you call Afro Puerto Rican.
Mm-hmm.
And I have to say, from stories that my own father told me,
Right.
that his mother was from the African descent, and his father was not. And believe it or not, within the Puerto Rican race, there was racism.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And they forbade, they did not allow my grandfather and grandmother to get married. and although they did get married. So, and so what am I trying to say? So what I'm trying to say is, I guess growing up as a kid, and I didn't think about these things, but now I'm noticing as I'm getting older, how this has so much been in, not it doesn't stay in the history books. It has continued, and a lot of people maybe either didn't speak up about it, or a lot of things just haven't been done. There hasn't been a change. So now with a lot of protesting, and now with a lot of organizations speaking up, and people kind of empowering themselves together, there is a bigger voice. Stop the hate. Stop the racism. And I was even looking at some images earlier of seeing some of these Afro Puerto Ricans. They were actually in chains on their neck, on their feet, their legs. They were given work to work in the mine. Wow. They were given the work to build forts. Okay, and then the Taino Indians, and they, by the way, and the African Puerto Ricans, they were abused and killed. They were chased like dogs. And I'm looking this up, and this is history. That I wasn't sat down and told about this. Probably not until I became in my 50s. And racism has caused a lot of trauma. Trauma to our ancestors.
Absolutely. I mean, people of all races. I think that everybody, especially people of color, are truly, completely traumatized by different types of racism.
Yeah.
And the crazy thing about it is, we can say that, white people are racist, but at the same time, we can show that same type of attitude among ourselves, because like you said earlier before we came on, you were saying that you have some Hispanics that are, hateful toward each other kind of the same way. And then even in the black race, you have some that act that way. You have the light-skinned black people versus the darker skinned black people. Then you have the Dominicans, and then you have the Puerto Ricans, then you have the Nicaraguans, the Costa Ricans.
That's right.
Everybody is, this skin thing. What is that mess? What is that? That to me is hate. All of it sums up to hate. We try to figure out, why do white people do this, and why they act like this, and why. All of it on all sides is hate.
Yes.
If we don't educate ourselves about each other, I don't care what race you are, if we don't educate ourselves about each other, then how can we break the barriers to learn about each other? How can we break the barriers? If I don't know a person and my mind's been all jacked up about an experience that I had with one white person, then I go treat all white people the same. What does that make me? So we have a responsibility to examine ourselves when it comes to hate. Yes, there is systematic racism. Yes, black people have and was enslaved years ago, brought to this country, and then released at some point and thrown into neighborhoods. And then even when slavery was over, some of us had certain freedoms and then some of us didn't. If you look back in history, some of the places that were built, like these projects, when you look at projects, they look like jails.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? So to me, in my mind, that's another type of oppression. If you drive through New York, or if you drive through places in Chicago, and you probably can even look up something online. Some of these places, these projects, these so-called low-income housing, look like jails. So that, to me, that's systematic racism. Anytime you enslave people and you give them nothing to work with after you have enslaved them, what do you expect for them to have?
That's right.
You enslave them, you give them nothing to work with, and then you throw the crumbs at them, and you expect them to be okay with that.
That's right.
You would think that this country, the so-called forefathers or whoever, they would have taken responsibility for what took place, and there would have been some type of system created for everybody to prosper. But that did not happen, and this is why we are where we are today. It is a historical, in my mind, in my heart, I look at it like this. It is a historical, generational spirit of hatred. That's what I call it. And it's like I said earlier, it is an inhumane act. So let me ask you this, Rebecca. What type of personal experiences have you had with racism?
Well, I remember, there was some times when I used to ask myself, how come you have the neighborhoods where there's blacks and Puerto Ricans, right? Mm-hmm. A few select white people. Mm-hmm. And then you have neighborhoods where you have some more wealthier people, okay? Mm-hmm. But those neighborhoods that have more of minorities, they're poor. They're poor. Mm-hmm. And I remember growing up, into a young adult, and the adult that I'm now, I always wondered, why does it have to be this way, Right. And then, I started to, you hear from family members or friends, and just what you just said, after there's freedom of slavery, did they selectively put people to live in a certain neighborhood, a certain place, to stay there and just say, well, go ahead, that's where you're going to live.
Yeah,
just
segregation.
Stay on your side, don't come on my side. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? So, I can't say personally, I've experienced, and I think it's because, my parents always taught me to treat everybody with respect. Mm-hmm. And if you walk, with dignity and respect, all you need to worry about is that you're doing the right thing.
So you never had an experience where you was in an environment with a race of people and different races of people, and you experienced something because you are Hispanic.
Not negatively, but okay. I'm going to tell you. I'm going to give you a positive.
Okay.
Now I had lived in North Carolina. Mm-hmm. I lived in Fayetteville, North Carolina. Mm-hmm. But before I moved there, I had lived. I can't think of the place, but it's over there by Fort Bragg. Mm-hmm. Fort Worth. Yeah, where the military soldiers are. Yeah. And I was a single mother, mm-hmm. and I had lived with a woman who was, a missionary. Now right. Check this out, missionary, and I decided that I wanted to get my own place. Okay. Mm-hmm. And I didn't know anybody. Right. And I didn't have a job, so I had to go and get government assistance. Mm-hmm. Okay, mm-hmm. And so I met a woman. I met a African American woman, mm-hmm. and I became friendly with her, and I said to her, I really would like to get my own place. Right. Can you help me? Right. And she goes, well, let me bring you to these apartments where you could apply. Mm-hmm. So if they were apartments for low-income housing. Now, I'm going to make this quick. I'm going to try not to make this long. But right. Okay, so the people that I met when I first moved, now I want you to know, I went on a whim, I should write a book. So I moved to North Carolina. I didn't know anybody, and I met these Spanish people. Some of them were Mexicans, some of them were Puerto Ricans, some of them were Dominican. So I started meeting a few people.
Right.
When I decided to take this apartment, okay, which was, I'll never forget, it was at Campbell Terrace, over there in Fayetteville, North Carolina. And when I told them that I was moving, okay, all of them said to me, and I'm gonna be real here. They said to me, "Well, you better put the Puerto Rican flag on your window because where you're going, there is no Puerto Ricans."
Oh,
now, I didn't think. That was the last thing I thought of. The only thing I thought of was I'm going to move, right? And I'm going to get an apartment just for me and my son and my unborn child.
Right.
Because to be honest with you, I wanted to be on my own. So, in particular, I remember I moved and I had that thing in my mind where I'm like, oh my God, I'm the only Puerto Rican here, and this is all a black neighborhood. It's all black people, right? And so I moved. I didn't have nothing, but God is good.
So let me ask you this. Yeah. What you said is all black people. What you felt some kind of way, or what made you think like that?
Well, no. This is what I want to. This is the point I want to get to.
Okay.
The point that I want to get to is that I started thinking about what people told me.
Oh, here we go.
You understand?
Gotcha.
Now you have to remember, I'm in North Carolina. I don't know anybody. Right? It's the first time I go there.
Wow.
Rebecca wants to get an apartment, so I get an apartment. Now, understand this. I have to go to low income. I'm not working.
Right.
I don't have a job.
Right.
So here I go, and so now people are giving me a biased perception, right? They're trying to make me to have a perception that they have.
So you're saying that it was the words of somebody else that had a negative perception about black people. So when you heard that, because of what they said, your mind was like, oh, okay, black people.
My mind was, okay, well,
biased.
I'm starting to feel some type of way.
Okay.
I'm afraid. Maybe someone's gonna do something to me, right? But let me tell you. See, it's all about experience. See, you can't go by what a community or another ethnic group tells you.
Right.
You need to go by your own experience. So I'm going to tell you two quick things that happened. Two very quick things, okay? I was in for those of you that know about North Carolina, it gets very hot in the summer.
Right.
I did not have central air in the apartment.
Right.
That I was renting, okay? I only had one fan.
Okay.
I was pregnant, and I started to hyperventilate because it was so hot that I had to open the door and go outside and sit down and breathe because I couldn't breathe. My neighbors opened the door, came out, saw my state, and right away they brought me a bowl of iced water full of ice. And they were two black women, and they told me, put your feet in the water.
So they treated you well, and all of those bad seeds
they took care of me. They gave me love. They treated me with respect. They treated me like a human being. And I started to see, well, wait a minute. These are wonderful people. Now let's go fast forward. Number 2, I have my son. And I have him in a baby carrier, and I have my other son in my arm. Now I didn't have a car, okay? I had to walk to Food Lion, and I had to walk back. I'm walking back with bags of groceries, a newborn in a pocket in front of me in my chest, and I'm holding on to a 4-year-old. And I'm walking probably about 2 miles to where the supermarket was to my apartment complex where I was renting. And every time you go by there was a package store. Okay? Now I'm talking about the neighborhood I lived in. In the package store, you had people hanging out, drinking their beers or whatever, right? And I was, I was tired, and these three older men run from the package store, and they all grabbed my bags. They all grabbed my bags, and they said, "We're going to walk you home. You can't carry all these bags by yourself." And they walked me home. So to make a long story short, I began to embrace my community. I felt a part of the community, and I was taught a lesson.
So you had to decide from the conversations that you had with people that were biased and hateful.
They were racist. They were racist.
And so so in other words, I would consider that to be a negative experience, because you could have been influenced by that, but you decided not to. So go ahead.
That's right.
Go ahead.
That's right. Absolutely. And let me tell you, I will embrace that experience for the rest of my life, because I met some wonderful Black African American people that took me into their home, treated me like a queen. Okay, and then people that I never met, strangers that came into my home, and so I personally, after that point, and we're talking about 27 years ago that I had this experience, that I won't tolerate racism, and it has no place in my life.
Well, that's good. That's good, because that's the point I want to make, is that when you have an experience with a race, you can't classify everybody of that same race. When you have a bad experience, you can't classify everybody of that race as being the same. Because what if you would have chosen to just go along with the negative words that you heard, Rebecca, and you started having that negative bias perception about Black people, and it would have continued? You know what I mean? You could be that person right now with that hateful attitude, but you decided not to take on that type of attitude, which is awesome, because that is what people experience every single day. There's somebody right now that is thinking about a bad experience that they had with a Black person or a Spanish person or a Korean person, Asian person, and because of what they experience, they think that everybody of that same race is the same. We all are humans, and everybody is not the same. I don't care what race you come from. Everybody is not the same. Don't allow hate to become you if you are exposed to it. You know, we can't justify hate when somebody treats us hateful. We can't justify that hate if we decide to treat somebody else hateful. We just can't. Right. And sometimes people, they do that. You know, I know some people that have had bad experiences with white people, and they look at it like, oh, well, all white people are the same. And that's not the case. You know, that's right. It's an individual, you know, case by case situation, you know, but I'm glad you brought that out.
If I can interject, it's a case by case, but see, I want to say experience, right? When someone says to you, hey, have you ever tried this or tried that, right? You say, no, I never tried that. And then you go and try it, whether it be a sport, whether it be a new fruit, whether it be a new food. Right. See, I feel with the times that we're living in today, right? My message would be to anyone and everyone, why don't you experience people by getting to know them?
Exactly. And that's my point.
First,
Yes.
so different races possess distinct characteristics and abilities, right? And and special gifts and talents, but that should not make anyone treat anyone inferior or superior because of those differences.
Yeah, I mean every black person and white person and Hispanic person, Asian person, everybody is raised differently. Everybody has a different type of mindset. And just because you may see a man or a woman of a certain race act in a certain way, that doesn't classify the whole race as being the same. But people think like that, which I think that's a narrow-minded person to think like that, But my point of saying all that I've been saying during this whole podcast is don't become the hate that you see. That's the point of and reason why we're talking about this right now, because of all that's going on in this country. Instead of people examining themselves to not imitate what they see, they start thinking a certain way, and then the hate that they experience, they become that same hate, and they try and justify it. You can't justify hate. I don't care where it comes from and how it happens.
Right.
You cannot justify hate.
I agree.
No, I think that we all have a responsibility to remember that when you have an experience that may not be pleasant, whether it's in the legal system or in your everyday life, you can get through it. You can get through it and not become that hate. If you don't have the right perception about it, then, a person like that, they can just, like I said, they can become the hate and just end up walking around hating everybody of another race, according to one experience. So
that's right. SB, I have, now that I'm thinking, I have personally witnessed, people behaving condescending to others of another race, and actually speak very, very bad, and let me tell you something. I got far away from that person, and I even would say, how can you speak like that when, first of all, we are all created in God's image. We are all created in God's image, and not only that, but if you show partiality to others because of their race, it's wrong and it's against God's word.
I just think that when you're raised a certain way, by the time you become a toddler and you begin to develop and you become older as a child, if you are raised a certain way, that person is raised in a hateful environment, that's all that person knows. So by the time they go out into the world, they go to school, that bad seed starts at home. My daughter, she didn't look at anybody according to race until she came home one day and asked me the difference. That's when I explained it to her.
Wow,
and my family is mixed up. My daughter is mixed, and like I said, when she came home and she asked me questions, then I explained it to her. It's just sad that our country is still dealing with this on this level. You would think that we would be in another place in terms of race relations altogether, but unfortunately, because of the leadership of this country, we don't have what we need to be truly united, and I only say that because when leaders speak hate, then what happens is people begin to take on that same spirit. And unfortunately, when we know the difference, not to take on that spirit, then we will do different. And it's just sad. But like I said, my reason for talking about this is just to vent a little bit, and just listen to what you were going to say, Rebecca, because I know you had a lot to say about it, and I just wanted to get it out there. But
oh yeah, this was a great topic for me that we have to live every day. We're not just talking about it. We need to live this every day.
Yeah, we got to walk it out.
And I also want to add, when we want to know something and we want to find something out, we have so much information at our fingertips.
Right.
So I don't think anybody, to your point, where people are taught about racism, or they're taught to have a different belief system,
right,
or they're taught. Okay, I understand all that, but as people get older and you become a teenager, or even an adolescent,
right,
and you become a young adult to a mature adult,
right,
there's all those years are going by for people to actually get information, study about what racism is, study about where you came from, know your roots. I didn't really know much about my roots, like I said, to probably in my late 40s, early 50s,
right,
when I learned more, and I'm like, wow, I didn't know this. And not only study and investigate yourself and learn, but experience new friendships with different cultures. I met a wonderful Chinese woman that I've known for 7 years, and I love, by the way, Korean, Japanese, and Asian TV, and I have to say that I learned and embraced the Asian culture. So whenever I feel like I'm a part of them. So whenever, now back, if you ask me when I was 15 or 16 or in my 20s, you would see a Chinese person, I would just keep on walking. Not now. I'll see an Asian person, and I would make sure I get eye contact and say, "Hi, how are you?" And I think it's so beautiful. Experience other cultures, and let's get this right. Let's love, man. Let's stop hating and stop judging people, and don't go by what your friends or family or friends from other cultures tell you. Learn about people for yourself.
Exactly. And examine yourself daily. If you really are honestly working on yourself, no matter what race you are, if you are honestly working on yourself as an individual, examine yourself according to how you think and how you perceive people. Ask yourself the question, am I being judgmental based upon a bad experience? Am I being judgmental based upon what somebody said about this race or man or woman of a different race? Think about that. And as you think about it, you'll see a difference. You will start to grow. You will start to have an open mind instead of having a mindset of judging or hate or accusation toward the person. A person see a black man or black woman and they automatically think just by the way the person look, they're going to steal something.
That's right.
I'm not saying don't be wise if you're out somewhere and you see somebody creeping around, but what I am saying, don't look at somebody and think that they're going to do something to you because they are of another race. We have to work on ourselves and be mindful to think differently, maintain a healthy thought life by the things that you take in. Like Rebecca said, your conversations, if you're having a conversation with somebody that is biased, they can plant the wrong seeds. And then the next thing you know, you're thinking according to what they said. That's negative. So we have to work on ourselves and just do better because God is love. We got to remember that. God is love. And we all are humans, and we all bleed and die the same. There's no difference. Superiority and inferiority, they work together. And there's no little I's and big U's and vice versa. I mean, we got to get it right. And so I just hope that as you're listening to this podcast, that you think about it, whether you're black, white, or whatever you are. Think about your thought life and how you perceive people. Try to look at people in a more positive light. And if you are a believer in God, you have that much more of a responsibility to look at people through a loving lens. You have a responsibility to work on yourself and get it right, because we can't give a pass to anybody. If you're a white person and you decide to hate a black person or a Spanish person because of what somebody said, and if you are a black person that has had a bad experience, whether it's the cops or the workplace or any kind of situation, you can't hate all white people. There's no excuse for it. We cannot give it a pass. We have to call it what it is, no matter where it comes from, and work on yourself to change it. So, Rebecca, I thank you again for your feedback on everything and just talking about this topic, because it's not an easy topic to discuss, because it just causes you to just dig into some places you normally don't dig into. And especially if we had a few more people here, oh my God, it would be something else to hear experiences. I mean, because we all have different experiences. I mean, I haven't shared my personal experience of racism, but I've had a few incidents occur in my life in the workplace. I've had incidents occur among my own race, unfortunately, because I am a light-skinned black woman. But I'm good, because guess what? Through my experiences, it has made me strong. Through my experiences, it has given me wisdom. It has helped me to understand behavior patterns and how people perceive me the wrong way sometimes. And I don't give a pass for it. I just call it what it is. But I don't allow it to affect me. And
I'm sure what you went through was painful, because we need to remember too, we need to be careful that we don't cause pain to no human being.
That's right.
That we don't antagonize.
Yes.
Because that's the word right there.
Yeah.
Antagonize. Mm-hmm. You do not antagonize another human being because of the color of their skin or their ethnic background. And we need to be careful, because that could cause trauma.
Absolutely.
And that could even cause PTSD, actually, in people.
Yeah.
But, I want to, the last thing I do want to say is, 1 Corinthians chapter 12, verse 26.
Yes.
If one member suffers, we all suffer together.
That's right.
And that's what I want to state. This is what I want to state to the United States of America. If one member suffers, we're all going to suffer together.
That's
and
right.
when one member, one ethnic group is being honored, we're all going to honor it together.
Yes, well said. We all have a responsibility, and if you have children and young teenagers, young nieces and nephews, speak to them. Talk to them about how it's important to love. I'm not saying to be passive towards a white person or any kind of person that's treating you wrong. I'm not saying that. I'm not talking about being passive. But what I am talking about is have the right attitude when something happens. Don't become the hate according to your experience. Let it go and practice forgiving. Yes, forgiving. I said forgiving, because some people are like, oh, I don't want to forgive white people. Forgiving somebody has everything to do with you, not the other person, because we all have to leave here one day. Your forgiveness is predicated upon your own heart, not the other person's heart. It's your heart that you have to take care of. So forgiveness is key. And you have to make sure that, like I said, you have to examine your thoughts to make sure that your thought life is healthy. Because if you become the hate that you have experienced, You are no better than the hate that's been shown to you.
That's right.
You must practice a healthy thought pattern. So we're going to wrap it up, and this, like I said, this is a deep topic, because I could go on and talk about a whole lot of things concerning this topic, but I'm going to leave it right there, Rebecca.
Oh, this is awesome, and I appreciate you, your knowledge and your wisdom, and how you, and we could do racism part 2 any day.
Oh, we can, and when we do it, we're going to have other people with us, because
okay.
It's a topic we can dig down into and get more solutions out of. And as far as the systematic racism and what happens at other levels, maybe I will invite somebody to talk about that, so they can share more deep knowledge about it. So listeners, I thank you so much for listening. And if you need to reach me, you can reach me at sbfavor@yahoo.com via email. And also you can find me on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. You can also find me on YouTube. Please subscribe to my channel. I appreciate you, and thank you again for listening. Have a good day.